What's shaking, everybody? My name is Ross Mandell. I'm coming to you live today from Delray Beach, Florida, Scott Woolley Studios. And today is an extra special treat for me. This is a young man. To me, everybody's young at this point in life, who's become very, very special to me. We have a mentorship, and I'm not sure exactly who's mentoring who at this point. I learned, I think, more from him than he gets from me. And he's become a part of Raw Media. He's a chiropractor. He's a businessman. He's a friggin' world-class athlete. I want to introduce you to my brother, Greg Haskin.
Thank you, Ross. Appreciate that. That was a very nice introduction.
So great seeing you, my brother.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me here. You know, I'm super excited to sit down and talk.
Well, you know, you are literally a power of example. You're
9 years old.
59. Boy, you're
59.
old, bro.
Yeah.
What the hell happened to you? 59, 208 pounds, about 6 feet.
6 feet, yeah.
World-class rugby player. You could still run up and down that field, right?
I could try. I don't know how successful
I
I
would
but
try.
I would try.
But
yeah.
you can run up and down that field. You're a father.
Yes.
You've been a husband.
Yes.
You've raised a family. So, in a nutshell, who is Greg Haskin?
That's a great question. That's perspective is someone that's been through life and challenges and always takes it head on. Try and deal with adversity, overcome obstacles, keep fighting for what I believe in. And, you know.
You know, I've been called, when people try to sum me up in one word, the word that keeps coming, even ChatGPT, it's very funny. It always comes back one word: resilient.
Yeah.
And yet, to me, you are a pillar of resilience. Yeah. And when we began, you know, our relationship, you told a story. I always like to dial the clock back.
Sure.
I think in a very linear fashion. I'm not one of these great conceptual types.
Right.
I like, you know, in a timeline, et cetera. So I believe this particular story really shaped who you are and who you've become. So you're a young guy. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Hollywood, Florida.
Okay. And you were always such a great athlete?
No, not really. You know, I was someone that loved sports, played from a very young age. You know, when I was young, we played every sport.
Right.
We played baseball, we played basketball, we played football, we played soccer. Whatever season it was, we would play.
And not video games. We actually went outside.
No, we played outside. And on our street, if we weren't playing organized sports, we would play stickball. We would play football on
Frisbee,
any field.
whatever catch,
it was,
baseball, softball.
We were doing it on our bikes, not inside, not on our phones. Or
I don't know. You know,
games
technology to me is always a blessing, but I mean, unless you can discipline your children today, these kids don't want to leave the friggin' phone and the screen and
it's a challenge.
Now,
it is.
Now I'm looking at you. You're a beast, bro. You're literally physically a beast.
Thank you.
And you're also a licensed professional in the healthcare field.
Yes.
So I'm guessing that when we were kids and we went to the little playground or the schoolyard, and you know, we would play, let's say, basketball or football, and you were probably the first guy always picked, right?
Far from it.
Tell everybody the story.
Yeah, so growing up, I loved participating in sports. My neighborhood was a bunch of, you know, the guys my age. We would play pickup basketball. We would play pickup football. We were playing in our organized sports. We were always competing. But the truth is when I was in middle school, I was always the last guy picked.
Whoa.
I was the last guy picked. I was, yeah.
You were the last guy picked.
I was the last guy picked, believe it.
And why was that, in your opinion? Did you suck, basically, or?
I don't think I sucked. I think that the other guys were maybe better. Maybe they developed earlier. Maybe they were more in tune. I don't know. But I didn't like it. I didn't like that. I didn't like that feeling, always being the last guy picked, and it lit a fire. It lit a fire for me.
I mean, I've just got to say, I look back on those days when you were kids. It was so important to me.
Yeah.
To be like the first guy picked, the captain, or one of the first two or three, and I was, and I'll never forget when you'd be standing around some of the guys that I like what I called my close friends I palled around with in the neighborhood.
Right.
We would sit there and they pick me, and then they pick this guy and that guy, and all of a sudden it'd be like two guys left, and they both felt terrible.
Yeah, that was me.
And one of them was last.
Yep.
And when you first told me that story, I mean, to me, I felt more pressure back then.
Yeah.
Honestly, than I have almost for the rest of my life with anything else.
Yeah, I think also because of, that's your surrounding. Those are your people,
That's all you know.
I want to be better. I want, believe in me, trust in me, bring me in. And that lit a fire for me to want to get better, be better, and look to take things on myself to make those changes, to try and be a better athlete, to be more fit, to be stronger, to be able to compete. And those are just little things I started doing and started a discipline in my life at that time that burnt a fire in my soul to be better,
You don't want to be the last guy. Now, I'm going to
No.
say this to you, and I probably have never said this to you yet to this point, but I want to bring it up today while we sit here in front of the world, really. It wasn't just athletic ability. A lot of it, to some extent, sometimes was a little bit of because nobody was that great when we were young kids.
Correct.
You know what I mean? There was
Correct.
nobody's dunking the ball and all
Correct.
that, But to some extent, it was almost a little bit of a popularity contest. To some extent,
Yeah.
like
Probably
likability.
a good part. Good part. Yeah.
And so my guess is you were. I don't want to use the word ostracized because you were there.
Mm-hmm.
You were there. They let you play.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say go home, get lost. Not
Right.
today, Greg.
Right.
But you were really a fringe guy at that point in the social, component, of this whole thing.
Probably a little bit, yeah.
And I've gotten to know you a little bit. I should say more than a little bit, in my estimation. And I feel as if, as a man, as a grown-up man, you don't give a shit if you fit in socially that way.
No, I don't.
You
No.
carved your own way,
Yeah.
right, by becoming great at certain things.
Yeah, I think that my biggest strength was I realized that I have to work harder. I have to do more. And I have to push myself. And I have to reach deep to gain those goals. It wasn't just going to happen. And I did it. And I did that. And it wasn't turn a switch, boom, from here to here. No, it was gradual progression. I was skinny. I had to put on strength, size, muscle. So I did everything I could to get there. I worked on certain skills that I had to work on by myself. I didn't have other people to work on them with. My dad was very busy. So I had to find out within myself. And as time continued to progress, I started to make strides. I started to get better. I started to compete. I started to play at the high school level. I became a starter. I became all-county. I went off to college on a football scholarship.
American football?
American football.
Wow, what'd you play?
American
What position?
football. I played like a defensive end, outside linebacker.
Wow.
I went to Hofstra University.
That's a real school, bro. I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up down the block from Hofstra.
Yeah,
so
we had a great program, and I was thankful for those opportunities. And when I look back at the kids that I was playing the middle school ball with, I was the only one that really went on to
Today
play
they
a
wouldn't
college
get
sport. I was the only one that went on to play a college sport on a scholarship and take it to another level.
I love that. I'm going to say something to you. I was going to save this for a private chat, but this is
Right.
this is something very special. So I saw an interview recently, and they're talking to a guy that arguably is the greatest performer in his sport.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You know what? You don't have to be great." He was slow. He had an average to weak arm.
Right.
He didn't make the high school football team. He didn't start till his senior year.
Right.
Even though they were 0-17 the year before.
Right.
He went to the University of Michigan. He was number 6 or 7 on the depth chart.
Yep.
and only became a starter in his senior year, and
Yep.
he had to share the starting ability.
Right.
And this was a guy that nobody had any expectations. And a guy named Bill Belichick put him in
Yep.
because the starting quarterback was injured.
Yeah. Drew Brees. I remember that.
And he ended
No,
up,
not Drew Brees.
Drew, what's his name?
Yes.
Right. But he ended up becoming
Yeah.
a 7-time Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
More than one team, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody calls him the GOAT in the sport of American football. That's Tom Brady. And you know what
Yeah.
he said? You don't have to be great at anything, but you have to be willing to do what
True.
the other guys aren't.
Exactly.
You have to show up. You have to be consistent.
Yep.
You have to be determined.
Yep.
In the off season, the
Yep.
dieting, the training, everything that he did. I saw that interview,
Yeah.
and I thought about you.
Wow.
I thought about you. And I was really moved by that because there's a lot of guys that didn't get picked on the schoolyard or the playground. A lot of them. And there's a lot of guys that were the last guy chosen.
Yeah.
And nothing became of most of them.
Yeah.
I hate to say it like
Yeah.
that, but that's true.
Yeah.
But you chose to basically use that
Yeah.
as a springboard
Yep.
to achieve greatness. And you have achieved greatness in your life. Make no mistake about that. My guess is you are about to achieve much even greater heights over
Yeah.
the next 12 months. I have good reason to believe that's going to happen. And it's going to happen fairly quickly for you. And you have a determination that other people don't have. At 59 years old,
Yeah.
it's still got that same
Yeah.
fire.
I do. I still have the same drive. For me, it's become such a part of my life and instilled in how I live. And, I look at myself for everything as an overachiever. I've got to work harder. I've got to do more to just get to that level. But I believe in myself, and I'll put in the work. And I carry that on to a lot of things. And I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've done a lot of wrong things, but I've continued to try and get better in all aspects of my life. But my discipline, my consistency that I brought into my life for sports has carried over and made a big influence in everything else that I've done.
I love that. So now I love to go, I'm very linear in the way I conduct these things.
Sure.
And so you end up becoming a pretty good high school athlete.
Correct.
You were
Yeah.
in the weight room. Tell
Yeah.
us what happened
Yeah.
between middle school and you're a senior in high school that ends up getting a scholarship to Hofstra, which is
Yeah.
real school, real athletics. I actually wrestled at Hofstra.
Yeah.
In a county championships.
Yeah, so what happened is I think just continuing to put in the work and the consistency and have the desire to be a better player and work at it. And that's what I did. And I just became better, more consistent.
Weight training?
Weight training, conditioning, skill work. Then when I'm in an organized sport like high school football in Florida in the 80s, very competitive.
Oh, my God.
Very competitive.
Some of the greatest teams in history came out of Florida.
My senior year, 1984, Broward County had 3 first-round draft picks in the NFL. Michael Irving, Benny Blades, Brian Blades. They had
Bro, the U.
They had
They had the best maybe college football
Yeah.
team ever.
Yeah. Lorenzo White,
Oh,
2,000 yard. So the talent was so good, so competitive. And again, so I'm practicing in that environment, I'm playing in that environment, putting in the work, putting in the time. Again, I wasn't a superstar, but I was a grinder and just would grind
Bro,
away.
you were the last guy picked at the playground.
Yeah.
And you now are friggin' playing high school ball at a level that scouts touted you and said, we want this kid.
Yeah.
I mean, for real.
Yeah. And I had one full big Division I offer. I was undersized I was a defensive end playing at 185, 190, something like that. And the University of Colorado at that time went 0-10. The next year, they ended up competing and splitting the national championships. That was my first big Division I offer, which I didn't take. I went to Hofstra because my mom is from Long Island. They had a very good academic school. They had a good program, very competitive in their division. And I'm like, no, they want me. They believe in me. That's the right opportunity.
To Hofstra, just so you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was a great experience for me
I'm a
as well.
Nassau County boy, you know.
Yeah.
And but Colorado, I mean, if Deion Sanders was coaching, you know, I think I would have accepted that deal.
Yeah, and again, just at the time, you know, it's that you make the decisions, and I look back at that was one great decision.
So did you actually play ball there?
I did. I played 4 years.
Did you?
Yeah.
And what position did you end up playing?
So I ended up playing same kind of position, walk away end, outside linebacker. I started my last year.
Defensive player.
Defensive player. I did play both ways. I played some fullback, mostly blocking fullback.
Wow.
I won the Mayor's Trophy my last year, which is most outstanding player, kind of in the program. You know,
what?
Just kind of being gritty and just doing my thing.
When you say you started, what position did you start?
Yeah, I started at outside linebacker. It was like a walk away. Wow. We played a 6-1. Walk away end, outside linebacker.
I love it. So you must have recorded sacks, tackles, all these things.
Yeah, I did a little bit of everything. I led the special teams my first couple of years.
I knew you were going to say that too.
You know,
I just knew you were going
to. And I thrived on special teams. They put me in at fullback to block because they knew if they needed a short yard, I'd try and grunge it out. Again, my stats weren't great, but I was on the field trying to make a difference.
You got a big heart, bro. You got a big heart. I mean, I already know that, but that's great. So now what happens, because I know you didn't play in the NFL, or I believe you didn't.
No. So a lot of the top players from Hofstra had an opportunity to walk on with the Jets because the Jets had their facility at Hofstra. I had a weekend where some of our top guys were invited in, and but I had at that time I had gotten into rugby, and there was a rugby tryout. And I was more into rugby at that time, actually, you know. So I got introduced to rugby. I was bouncing at a bar, McKeeb's. It was the local college bar at Hofstra. And the owners were rugby guys. And so they would host the rugby parties. And so I would see the rugby parties. And something that really sparked my interest was the social side of rugby. These guys were going out, playing a match, coming back, and socializing after. So all the years I played in football, in high school, youth, college, you get done with the game, you never meet your opponents. No. I never met anybody. No. These guys were getting together and sharing a beer.
Hanging out, right?
Hanging out, getting to know each other, singing songs, celebrating. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. You know, very cool.
That rugby, you know, you sent a clip. I think you posted it yesterday or today.
Yeah.
And the guy's on the field, he's running, and he jukes one guy out.
Yeah.
Then right before he gets hit, he tosses the ball to your son, the big chase. And I mean, you guys are fast.
Yeah.
There's no equipment, there's no helmets.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You don't get that padding like American football.
Correct.
And you get to see everybody, which I think is really...
And that's what attracted me to the sport. One, when you're playing rugby, there is no different positions as far as offense or defense. When you have the ball, you're on offense. Right. When they have the ball, you're on defense. And it's a constant game.
It just doesn't stop.
It's a constant game. And then the other thing is the big guys might need to have skills that some of the little guys have. Passing, you know. And the big guys got to try and chase the little guys, and the little guys got to tackle the big guys, and vice versa. It's a more complete game. Football is very situational, 5 seconds, full burst, go all out, and very skilled for that little position. Rugby, it's a more dynamic game. And that brought a breath of fresh air to me to be able to, because again, I wasn't the best at this, but I was good at a lot of the things. I would run hard, I'd tackle hard, I had
You
good
could run with
fitness.
these rugby guys right off the rip because of your football training.
Yeah, because I was.
But it's different conditioning, right?
Different conditionings. Different. You have to be much fitter, you know, to play rugby. Yeah. You can't carry the big bulk, although nowadays
you don't huddle and stop and then you know go to the sideline. Football is a lot of
there's no real recovery. Your fitness level is a different.
It's like soccer but physical.
Correct.
You know, the running.
Correct. Tackle, get up, go. Hit a ruck, get up, go. Yeah, constant.
Yeah, and
constant
I've had the pleasure of meeting your son in person.
Yeah.
And he's just a beautiful, big man, boy.
Yeah.
Non-threatening, but you could see his level of fitness.
Yeah,
but
he's a stud.
Yeah, but you can't really tell the physicality because you guys are so lean.
Yeah.
You're so lean.
Yeah.
You see the defensive players in pro football, they don't really run too much.
No.
Really.
No,
they've got a
2-second burst,
right.
and
power.
That's
then
what
rest.
they need. Correct.
You huddle up.
Correct. But like if you look at the pro and the Olympic and the international players nowadays, it's the same thing. These guys are bigger,
they're
faster.
Huge, right.
It's scary.
Then in your day, they're much bigger.
In my day, correct.
They know the science today and everybody.
Well, also the training's much different.
Yep.
Now with nutritional and
everything.
and recovery and how they take care of themselves, it's a whole different world.
You know a thing about that, don't you? You know a thing about recovery and nutrition and helping because you ended up becoming a chiropractor.
Correct.
You went to school.
Correct.
I want to talk now. So you're at Hofstra.
Yep.
You're bouncing at the bar.
Yes.
Right? You're seeing a bunch of sort of cool guys.
Yeah.
They're hip guys. They're fun. They're cool.
Yeah.
They're not nerdy. They're not like less than.
No.
They're athletes.
Yep.
World-class athletes, in my opinion. And you like that. You like that whole thing. So you start rugby while you're still in college, or was it after?
Yeah, no. So there was a 2-week period where we didn't have football, spring football, and they still had the rugby season going on. And these guys were just always in my ear, rugby. And they said, you're going to come out and play this day, And I went out and I played. And I fell in love with it. So they put me on the end of the line, the wing, where most new players go. And
is that true?
Yeah, at the
that.
end, because you're the least involved, and especially if you have some speed, that's where they put you.
Are you fast?
I mean, I was pretty fast, I mean, not super fast. I ran a high 4.5s in a 40.
What are you kidding?
So
You're like a freaking rabbit, bro.
Yeah, well, and again, so I just look at myself as, I wasn't a great athlete. I was strong. I became strong. I became pretty fast. I didn't have the most skill. And that's why I just had to be tenacious with my fitness level and to bring that up a notch so I could compete, not being as athletic or have the skills maybe some of the other top players.
So now the rugby's in your ear, so you start playing?
So I started playing. I played those 2 games of 15s, and then they play a version of rugby in the summer called 7-a-side rugby. Traditional rugby is 15 players against 15. In the summer, they play 7-a-side rugby, 7 against 7, in a tournament format, much shorter games. And you would play 4 or 5 games.
How long is a traditional game?
Traditional game is 80 minutes, 2 40-minute halves.
80 minutes?
80 minutes.
What?
Yeah, 80 minutes.
Boy, oh boy.
And back in the day, now they allow subs. Back in the day, you couldn't sub unless the ref declared that you were injured. Then you could have a sub. So they would come out.
Down from time to time,
they would come out. Yeah, they'd have the magic sponge. They'd have a bucket with water and a sponge and sponge you down, and you'd have to suck it up a little bit and probably keep going. And if you had a real injury, they could put somebody in. Now they have substitutions. And again, but the game now is just so different. It's such a faster game. It's very physical. The athletes that they have playing is pretty amazing.
I mean, your son seems like he dwarfs you. I hate to say it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? He's like a newer, faster, stronger version.
There's no doubt.
You know what I mean? He's like next level. So now what? Do you actually play?
So they have 7-a-side rugby. And so the Hofstra guys would go out to Randall's Island. It's right outside the city, like a little island.
I know exactly.
And they would play pickup kind of rugby where each team would come and 2 teams would go out. And when one team scored a try, which is when you score in rugby, like a touchdown in football, a try, then another team would come on and they'd rotate. And the college kids would go out there. And we had some good players, and I recruited some other football guys. And we did pretty good. Well, one of the local teams recruited me for the summer to say, come play with us for the summer. And I played with them that summer, and one of the top level coaches saw me, and he invited me into like an all-star camp where it was players that they'd select for an all-star team that represented the whole East Coast.
Wow.
So I got invited into this. I didn't make the team at that time. Later on I would. But it exposed me now to a higher level. higher level skill, higher level athletes, higher level competition, which again lit me up. I love that stuff. I love it. And that same coach, his name is Emil Cygnus. He coached the ERU, the top players on the East. He also coached the U.S. men's sevens national team, as well as the women's national sevens team.
He was a coach
of those teams, correct.
He's a top dog.
He was probably one of the most recognized sevens coaches, even at this point still, in the world. I mean, that's how recognized he was. And I consider him my mentor, you know.
I love it.
And so he's a special guy. He told one of the ERU collegiate coaches, so they have that same team for the top college players on the East Coast, about me, and I got invited then into the 15s program for the ERU collegiate team, which at the time I did make, and they have a competition.
And this is after college?
No, this was still while I was in college.
Wow, so you're really busy boy, man.
Yeah. So
and what were you studying in college?
So I was studying business. So so I graduated, and so I played those couple games of 15s. I played that summer of sevens. The next year, the same thing, a little 15s and sevens. And then after I graduated, I ended up getting a job with a startup company in Manhattan in sales. And so I played for the top club in New York City.
So you stayed up north?
I stayed in New York because I had this really good opportunity with this startup company. And it was interesting. It was called Metrolink, and what they did is they linked large mail rooms with courier services. And what they did is they provided hard computers that linked them. And it was a state-of-the-art technology, because the old way of doing it was, if you need a courier, you get on the phone, and then they take the information, they write it down, then they pick up the phone and they call their room, and their room takes it down, then they get their courier. And there was a lot of maybe mistakes or not timely. They put a hard computer in each one, you just boom. And
it was the future. It was a look at the future, really.
It's a look at the future. And at that time, the internet just started emerging. And
so this is the 90s we're talking
This
about.
was the 90s. This was 1990,
wow.
Exactly. And so really, once the internet came out, it kind of killed their business, because they had control. They were putting the hard computers in.
They built like their own LAN.
They built their own connection, right? So, but at that time, I was living in Manhattan. I was working hard, but I was also playing high-level rugby for the club that I was playing for, Old Blue in New York. And I was training a lot. I was waking up early and training. That was in my DNA.
And then going to work.
I'm going to work and hard. Then we have rugby practice at night. And then I'm 20-something years old, living in Manhattan. I'm going out every night, you know.
I understand.
That's I mean, life was good. I mean, I had a great time.
And when you're young, you can do everything, you know.
You can, right? And I was doing everything. After about 8 months, one morning I was laying in bed, and I said to myself, I can't do this anymore.
I can't move.
I can't move. The pace of it. I'm kind of a laid-back Florida guy, you know, easygoing, but the pace of everything and the commitment to rugby, the commitment to work,
right. and in New York City,
just everything.
Fastest city in the world.
You get in the elevator, get out of the elevator, you run to the street, you run to the subway, then you take a cab or whatever it is. It's boom, 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 boom. So it just caught up with me, and I said, you know what? This company, I just realized now the stress and the pressure of the internet. I wasn't really happy with what I was doing, and I said, you know what? I through some connections, I had an opportunity to go to England and play rugby. They were going to give me a contract.
For money now?
Not really money, just to play at a higher level. They'd put me up in housing.
That's money, bro.
Yeah, back in the day, that was what they would call,
income.
You know.
According to the internet.
So, right. So what happened is that this team had some top-level foreign players, and I had agreed to what we were going to do, and about 2 weeks before I was going to go, I gave up my job. I gave up my apartment. 2 weeks before I was going to go, they called me and they said, you know, we can't, you know, go through with this contract. They just changed the laws in England that before they allowed 4 foreign players. Now they only allow 2.
Oh, boy.
They already had 2 international players, so they're like, we can't oblige the contract. What we did, they changed the rules. So great, what am I going to do? So I really didn't have any choice. I moved back to Florida. My folks at this time had split time between living in South Florida and Colorado. They built a house in Colorado, and they were out mostly in Colorado. So I moved back into their place, and I said, you know what I always want to do is I want to get into strength and conditioning, and I think I'm going to go back to school for exercise physiology with the mindset of maybe becoming strength and conditioning coach. So I did.
Makes a lot of sense.
So I started going to FIU. And at that time, to earn some income, I started doing some personal training. I became a manager at a gym, and I started playing rugby for the local Fort Lauderdale Rugby Club. Okay, and on that team there was a chiropractor, and I started getting chiropractic care, and I loved the more holistic, natural approach that it took. I hadn't gotten chiropractic care before; it was my first real exposure, and it clicked. You know, it's just now it's hand in hand with wellness, exercise physiology,
Correct.
training. Everything's kind of full circle, right? So I'm a year and a half in school. I enjoy being back in South Florida. I've got my family, my friends. I'm on a career change path. Things are pretty good. Fort Lauderdale at that time had a very good rugby team, and I get a call from a friend that I played on that ERU collegiate team, Eastern All-Star
Randall's
team.
Island, right?
And so he says, Greg, I'm at this chiropractic school, and they have this coach, Terrence Titus. You know Terrence. And they wanted me to give you a call to see if you'd be interested to come and check out the school. They have a rugby program here. I'm like, what?
The
Really?
chiropractic school has a rugby program.
They have a rugby program.
Talk about God talking to you.
Yes.
What?
So yeah, and this is how my life's always been, full circle, how things pop up. So he goes, yeah, they want. So I go up there, and they have an amazing rugby program. I love the premise of chiropractic, a more holistic approach to
Correct.
health.
Healing.
They offered me a full scholarship to go to chiropractic school
If you play rugby.
if you play rugby. Of
Why
course,
not? And you're doing it anyway.
Of course. It was a no-brainer.
What?
It was just a full circle. So I dropped everything down here, and then I went up to chiropractic school.
Up where?
You know, that was in Marietta, Georgia.
So now you're in Georgia.
Now I'm in Georgia.
Going to school.
Going to
How many
school.
years is chiropractic school?
4 years. So I needed.
It's 4 years.
It's 3.5 years, taking 25 credits a quarter, 4 quarters a year. So we were taking 100 credits.
Oh my God,
With
bro.
labs. It was intense. And our rugby program was very intense. We would train 4 or 5 days a week. Most rugby clubs, we would play Division I club rugby against the top clubs. They would train 2 days a week. Most of these guys, you know, they have full-time jobs. They train. We would train 4 days a week. We would hit the weights in the morning. It was almost like Division I football. It's a very big commitment. And what was so interesting is the players that got attracted to this program were all high-level rugby players and athletes, and were looking to further or better themselves with another career or another avenue to provide for their family. So it was a lot of like-minded, motivated, and it was just a great environment, great energy. Everybody looked out for each other. Everybody helped each other.
I love
you know.
You're blessed.
Really so blessed to, again.
Now you're single this whole time?
I'm single, yeah.
Okay, so you could you could do all these things because you don't
Yes.
have a family. And
Correct.
You don't have to go home and tell the wife we're moving to. I'm going this. I'm doing
Correct.
that.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it. So
Yeah.
that's great. So you do 4 years like that.
So I did 4 years like that, yeah. And
You graduate,
I graduated, yeah.
and you're a
And
doctor of
I'm a
chiropractic
doctor
medicine.
of
Is what they call
chiropractor.
it?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
So during that time, I did meet my now ex-wife, and
Okay.
we had a long-distance relationship through while I was going to school there. And I got married maybe 6 months before I graduated.
Okay.
So, and she got pregnant. We had a honeymoon baby. And so when I graduated, I was looking to start a practice. I had a baby
Back
on
in
the
Florida
way.
now.
Back in
She's
Florida.
a Florida girl, right?
Yeah, she's a Florida girl. So I had an opportunity through someone that I met at my wedding They knew, they have a friend who's a chiropractor. He's an older guy, he's been practicing many years, and you had to do an internship in the state of Florida before you could practice on your own. So I did my internship with him up in Melbourne, Florida.
Wow.
And the opportunity was that he's looking to retire and come into his practice, and he'll pretty much give it to you. Well, that's how I was explained. Or
I get it.
You know. So I went up there and put a lot of energy into his practice. Really nice guy. He was 72 years old. He had practiced like 50 years. You know, he was an old timer. And I helped build back up that practice, and I built it up. And then when it came time where I completed my internship and, you know, we wanted to talk about, you know, me maybe taking it over, then he wanted kind of an exorbitant amount of money for the practice.
Oh, all of a sudden.
All of a sudden. But at the same time, you know, it wasn't the ideal place for me to be. My family was in down South Florida. This was up in Melbourne.
Right.
And so I decided that I'm going to come back down here and explore looking to open up my own practice. So I moved back down here. I started working for a friend in his practice.
You had satisfied the internship requirement.
I satisfied the internship. Now it was time that I could go out on my own.
Good for you.
So, yeah, so I found a position where with someone that I knew. It was going to be like a little mentor to me and help me explore finding a location to open my practice, which I did, which was in Pembroke Pines. It was on the east side of Pembroke Pines. I grew up in Hollywood, so it was kind of right in the middle.
Wow.
It was great. And, and opened up my own practice in 1997.
And now you're married, you have a child, right, by this point
Married,
in time?
have a child, correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mr. Chase, huh?
No, my older son, Dalton. My firstborn
okay.
is Dalton, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Dalton.
Yeah.
Sure Haskin.
That's right.
Wow. And
Yeah.
then you have Chase, and then you have your daughter.
London, correct. Yeah.
So you have 3 children.
So, you know, the interesting thing about Dalton is that it was really touch and go. So we had decided that we were going to have a natural childbirth in a birthing center, and her water broke early. She didn't go into labor. We went to the hospital. It took them a while to induce labor. By the time Dalton was born, it was almost 70 hours after she broke her water.
Oh, my God.
So we had left our dogs. We had 2 dogs at the house, left our dogs. Dalton's born, beautiful, amazing. Everything's great. My parents are there. Mom's there. Dalton's great. Well, okay, everything's good. Let me run home, take care of the dogs who've been by themselves for two days and feed them and come back. And so I go feed them, take them out, come back, and everybody's somber. And I'm looking at everybody, I said, what's wrong? And they said, Dalton has pneumonia. He's in
Oh, my God, bro.
neonatal intensive care.
Oh, my God.
So I go in, and he's in like an incubator, and his chest is collapsing. He's taking like 50, 60 breaths a minute. And it's like I just became a father. And then all of a sudden I do anything for this newborn kid.
I understand, bro. Wow.
So, but thankfully, Dalton was a fighter. He fought through it, and after spending maybe 6 weeks in neonatal intensive care, fought himself out of there. Had to get his lungs strong, and yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he became okay?
He still deals with some chronic asthma.
Right.
But he's an amazing kid. He's an old soul. He's just super good human, good person.
That's so great. And where does he reside now?
So he lives in Tamarack. He's married. You know.
Nice. And what does he do?
So he does a lot. He does some general construction. They do a lot of remodeling. They do insurance claim. He formed a company with a guy that they were in a group with. And they're growing, and he's very, very committed to what he's doing, and it's nice seeing him start a company and having some growth. So,
that's really great. Now,
yeah.
So your life has been lived. It's almost like parallel. Your sports career and your sort of medical career.
Yeah.
And then there was almost like a convergence of the two. They almost integrate, right? Because you're a healer.
Yeah, they do. It falls. It's incredible.
Rugby's a rough sport. A
Yeah.
lot of Americans don't know how brutal rugby is.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like all the injuries that I have as an older guy now all
Yep.
came from high school football.
Right.
Not
right.
from fighting and
Right.
boxing and wrestling and weightlifting and all these things.
Right.
All this friggin' football
Yeah.
injuries, and I've had the privilege to meet some healers over the course of my life.
Yep.
So I understand what it is to meet a healer.
Yeah.
I haven't let you go to work on me yet.
Yeah.
We just really haven't had a moment yet, but
Yeah.
that's coming.
Yes, it will.
But you consider yourself
Yeah.
a healer.
Yeah, one of the things is because of my athletic background, when I graduated, something that was important for me was to work with athletes. So I went out and I took a program to become a certified sports chiropractor. And the doctors that taught that program were the doctors that worked and treated pro and Olympic athletes. And this program helped put different ideas into my mind, different perspective, different skill sets that we learned in school. I went to a school that was considered straight chiropractic, which means we just adjust the spine. We remove the interference on the spine to let the human body function to its fullest
Heals
potential.
itself.
Exactly. The body's a self-healing organism. By removing nerve interference, it's letting the body function better. They didn't believe in modalities to help with the soft tissue or things like that. They just believed the most important thing was to remove the nerve interference.
Even though it was a rugby school,
even though it was a rugby school, we were always adjusting each other to give ourselves the advantage. Teams would see us lined up before the games, and the older guys adjusting the younger guys, and we believed that was an advantage for us, right? We would call it turning the power on, removing the nerve interference, let your body function to its fullest potential. We're not curing anything, we're not healing anything, we're just letting your body function to where it's capable of, you know?
The body heals itself.
It does. But then there is, modalities that we have, and there is technologies, and there's components to get better results with just removing the nerve interference. And that's what I learned in this sports chiropractic program. And I got exposed to top people in the field and their techniques, and I went out and got certified in some of these techniques. And I think that gave me an edge to give the highest quality of care and treatment to my patients, And there was always that natural, evolution of the magnetism of me working with athletes. And so I worked with some very high level athletes. I worked with average athletes. I worked with a lot of youth athletes because my kids were playing sports.
Right.
And so I had the variety and saw everybody. And it's just something that I really enjoyed to work with the younger athletes, and then with learning knowledge and strength and conditioning and fitness and when my nutrition, yeah, and I'm still, that's something now I've continued to learn more and more about, and it's become a bigger aspect of my life, of implementing that with my fitness, wellness, health component.
I love that. So now, I hate to say, now that you're middle-aged,
yeah,
right? We're no longer young. We
Yeah.
have to be candid about that.
Yeah.
I'm not even middle-aged anymore, unless I want to live to be like 140.
Yeah.
And that's highly doubtful. Your life on both sides of the fence, my understanding is you're now more of a coach than a player in rugby.
Yeah. So I was still playing competitively at 37. I had gotten selected for the previous 4 years to play for Team America. It's former U.S. level players that have a competition in Bermuda called the World Rugby Classic. And so it's all the top countries in the world: New Zealand, Australia, Great Britain, Canada, France, Argentina would come together with all players 33 and over that represented their country or played at a high level, and they would have this tournament. And it was amazing because Bermuda is a beautiful island. It's a beautiful island. They cater to this tournament, right? So we're playing some pretty high-level rugby. You're talking about, you're playing with like the Hall of Fame of rugby guys, We played against New Zealand All Blacks, some of the best players that ever played, Yeah, they're a little past their prime, but it's like playing against Hall of Famers, right? And it was very social. You know, you're on scooters, they have parties, we're playing great rugby, and man, it was an amazing tour. So I had gotten selected 2009, 2001, 2003, I was training for this. I was 37, and I was struggling with some groin issues and problems, and I was always tight in my groin and probably never spent enough time with my flexibility, and we didn't know as much about it.
Right.
And so I struggled, and I struggled training, but I pushed through it. I got as fit as I could. We go out there, our very first game, we played against New Zealand, right? And we've never beaten New Zealand in this tournament, and we beat them. And the second the game ended, I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk. I literally couldn't get up and walk. And we have a game in 3 days against South Africa. South Africa is also one of the top playing countries. So the long and short is that I didn't do anything for 2 days, and then came game time. I loaded up with meds, and I was able to play. And I played through, and the second the game ended, I could barely walk. We won. We beat South Africa.
Wow.
So we beat New Zealand. We
Back
beat
to
South
back.
Africa back to back.
Best in
Now
the
we
world.
got France in the finals.
Oy.
And France was a really good team, really big team, and the weather was terrible and it poured. The game was sloppy. They beat us in a close game. And the same thing happened. The game ended. I couldn't walk. So now I get back home. The tournament's over. I'm like, I got to take x-rays of myself. So this was 2003. I still had a processor that used chemicals, right? And so when I would turn on my processor, I had a couple old films, and you run it through to get the chemicals mixed. So I took x-rays of my hip, you know, and I go back and I run the films through, and then I go took care of a couple patients. I come back, and I pick up the first film, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, this isn't me. This person
Can't be
is
me.
old, right? And then I realized that was me. And when I looked at that film, I would have thought that person was 70, 80 years old, right? I was 37 at that time. I had no joint space in my hips. My acetabular was starting to go in, and I was like, oh man, I gotta take this to someone that knows what they're doing.
You got problems.
I had a good orthopedic friend. He was a knee, shoulder guy, but I trusted him a lot. He was the top guy.
Yep.
Took it to him. He goes, Greg, you need your hips replaced. And he goes, anybody that's hips are this bad are coming into my office or an office and begging for pain medication.
Can't move, right.
And I asked him, like, does this mean I can't play rugby again, you know? He goes, there's this guy, Philippon, he's at Steadman Hawkins. He does this resurfacing. Let's see if you're a candidate for that. He sent my films back and said, no, this guy needs bilateral hip replacement. So what happened is
Both hips?
both hips, both.
Oh, my
both.
God, bro.
So what happened is I started swimming and stretching and no more running. I came to terms, I can't play anymore. And that's when I started really getting into coaching more and more, and I've been coaching ever since.
Now, also, I come to understand that in business also, you're more like you're a COO. You're a coach.
Yeah.
In business, you are number two guy at a big business that manages 40 plus offices, correct? Something
That's
to that
correct.
effect, right?
Yeah.
So that's your life in a nutshell. Your
Yeah.
evolution as a stud
Yeah.
athlete, and your evolution as a stud business guy.
Yeah.
And a lot of, if not all of this drive comes because the little kids in the neighborhood didn't pick you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if
I'm
you would
too
have
stubborn.
picked number
Too
one and number
stubborn.
two, you might have been
Too stubborn. Maybe got complacent. I don't know. I mean, I try and bring the same leadership that I did to myself as a player, then as a coach to my players, as I do my team that I work with, you know? And I don't have all the answers. I'm
But
not
you
the
lead by
smartest
example.
guy. Yeah.
I always say to you, right, you're a power of example.
Yeah.
You're a power of example to me.
Thank you.
You're not going to be denied.
Yeah.
You're just going to
Yeah.
just
I'm
make
stubborn.
shit happen.
Yeah, I'm going to because I'm stubborn, and also I'm very committed. And if I put my mind to something, I'm going to complete the task.
You're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
Now, before we wind this up, is there anything you want to say to this audience, to the world, to your family, to your friends, to your associates, to my
Yeah.
fans, to
Yeah.
complete strangers?
There is, we didn't bring up a lot of different things. I've like everybody has some very challenging times. I fell off a water slide.
Oh.
I've had a lot of different injuries, going through my hip replacement, waiting too long, family issues and stuff. Everybody has their challenges. At this point in time, I feel that I want to impact people. I have done it in my practice with my patients. I have done it with my players that I've coached. But I think I have more to offer. And I want to get out and I want to try and make a difference in people's lives. It could come from working with businesses and teaching them about how to work as a team. It could come from overcoming challenges that I've done. And just really just tell people how strong the mind is and your mindset, and if you put your mind into something, what you could accomplish.
Your will. Your will to be the first guy picked, to be the captain of the team. Your will to succeed.
Yeah.
Your will to get on that field and play, even though you can't hardly walk. That's to me is a great part of your message.
Yeah.
And as you know, we plan to put you on stage in just maybe 4 months, 5 months tops, and help you craft and hone your message, because I feel like your life is a testament to the human spirit. It's indomitable.
Yeah.
Persistence and determination are omnipotent.
Yeah.
When I was an 8-year-old boy, I saw that like on a scroll.
Yep.
And I made my parents buy it for me.
Amazing.
It must have been $5 or $3. And it was thumbtacked on my bedroom wall from the time I was 8 to the time I was like 16.
Yeah.
Persistence and determination are omnipotent.
Yeah.
Omnipotent.
I like that.
You cannot be defeated.
Yeah. Yeah. It's your mind.
It's all here.
It is, mindset is so important, and
I think it's everything.
I
believe it's everything.
It is. 2.5 years ago, I tore my Achilles. They told me 10 months. 10 months.
Bro, what's with you?
At 7 weeks, I'm sitting with my boot on. I said, I'm going to be in the gym next month, and I was, and it wasn't easy. And it hurt, and I had to work through, but I did everything possible to get there, and I knew I'd be there because I set my mind to it.
Right. And you knew it was going to hurt, but you don't care. I want to thank you for coming in today.
Thank you so much, Ross.
I love you,
man.
As you know, in a certain way. I'm not an alternative lifestyle guy.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, in the words of Jerry Seinfeld.
Right.
But you really are a privilege. I feel blessed to have you as part of my life.
And I feel the same. You've impacted me and helped me with even backing my mindset and reassuring me, and that's meant a lot. And you've brought a lot out of me, and I appreciate your time and your tutelage and your mentoring, and I look forward to great things working with you and seeing the growth of Raw Media, and a lot of exciting things to come.
We're on our way. Thanks for coming in today.
Awesome. Thank you.
I love you, dude. I mean that.
You too, man.
I love you.
I appreciate that.
What a handshake this guy has. Whoa, what a beast.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
That was good. That was good.